Kent Hughes just revealed his strategy for the Canadiens cap space coming up, and oh boy, you don't want to miss what he had to say. But before we get into that, a little note on Habs unicorn prospect Florian Xhekaj showing out in Brantford's preseason. We're going to be talking about all of that on this edition of Habs Digest. And as we get into the video to talk a bit about Arber's little brother Florian, a quick reminder, guys, if you're one of the thousands of people who has not subscribed and you love our daily news videos, hit it now. You will not regret it. Jesse, Florian Xhekaj, I mean, I know it's just preseason for the Brantford Bulldogs, but oh my goodness, he's doing so well. He got second star of the game in their most recent win versus the Kitchener Rangers. He was a +2 with a goal, and not only that, that goal, he had a brutal, devastating hit to someone on Kitchener. Dirty or not, I'm going to link the video in the description. You guys go check it out and let me know what you think, whether it was dirty or not. But Jesse, some Tom Wilson vibes from him there. Number 43 on his back even. He goes and gets that brutal hit, gets a penalty. As soon as he comes out of the box on a rush, he snipes one past the goalie. You got to think, with him being named to the Habs rookie camp and seeing what his big brother Arber did at the rookie camp last year, Florian is primed and ready to go.
Yeah, he plays with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder there, as we saw, maybe a little bit of an elbow there, but then following up with that quick release, that nice snipe there. So kind of a little bit of everything, right? But you got to feel like that compete level is the reason why they drafted Xhekaj, along with, of course, that last name, right? But how great would it see if he ended up panning out somehow, seeing them both on the ice, but like Arber Xhekaj, his brother was kind of doubted, questioned his whole life, had to work so hard to make it to the NHL under very hard circumstances. I think that that's telling us the thing that we don't want to do in this situation is also underestimate Florian Xhekaj. Now, that being said, he still has a lot of work to do to get to the NHL. That's a hard road. It's a tough nut to crack, but he might be capable. He might have those tools. And again, of course, you and I, we love seeing those players that compete, that have that certain edge to their game. Obviously, great type of playoff type players. We loved Arber Xhekaj and what he's brought in. He just made enjoying the game, right, just so much more for all of us. When it wasn't always such an easy year, we knew that he was going to compete. He became a fan favorite for many reasons. So, I mean, Florian Xhekaj might have the makings of a fan favorite as well.
He definitely has the blood of it, right? With his big brother Arber doing some crazy things in the NHL this year. Now, look, let's be honest. Florian is far from an NHL lock. In fact, he's far from even an AHL lock at this point. However, seeing these flashes of what the Habs team described in their draft video as unicorn qualities, right? Someone at his size who lays the body like he does, who can still skate at a decent level and still put the puck in the back of the net if he wants to. That's still valuable. You see some guys sticking around the league, maybe not as many as there used to be. Someone like a Ryan Reeves, right, who is still in the league getting contracts well into their 30s because they have that intimidation factor, but also occasionally the ability to put the puck in the back of the net. So we'll be keeping an eye on Florian, excited to see what he can do at Habs rookie camp. But Jesse, let's dive into this now. Kent Hughes, oh boy, he revealed the Habs strategy when it comes to cap space. Now, there's been a lot of questions around which guys are going to stay, which guys are going to go for Montreal, not only this season, but in the long term, right? There are some long-term contracts like Anderson and Gallagher that we'll talk about in a bit that may not be fits long-term, but here's what Kent Hughes had to say recently. He said, "We are in the sense where we can reduce our financial commitments going forward with, for example, a contract or a player that probably won't be part of our future. We'd like to do that, and we did do some of that, talking about, shipping out some guys who might not be here in 3-4 years. Now, he doesn't like to use the word rebuild, but he wants to compete on a sustainable basis, and I think that's exactly what he's doing. But he also says, if we're spending money to improve our team for a year or two, but we're depriving or limiting the development of the players that we know have to be part of it when we're ready to be the team that we strive to be, then I think we're short-sighted." And of course, Kent was able to ship away Weber's contract. They still have Price's contract. And he also says, Jesse, it's maybe not an impossibility that he might trade away Price's contract. Now, we'll dive into that a little bit later. But what I want to talk about now, who do you think Kent Hughes is targeting from the Habs to maybe ship away? Like some of these guys that aren't going to be part of the team for the future. And isn't it crazy that this is kind of the first time he's saying, like, I mean, we knew his ideology, but he's like, you know what? If you're not part of our long-term future, we're going to trade you, and we want to give the young guys the minutes now.
Well, that's it. You have to feel like Joe Armia, Christian Dvorak, players that got these kind of contracts before he came in, that Kent Hughes is just kind of make sense of what the new realities of our team and where we're kind of headed. I think he's done a great job of that so far. And again, it's nice to see that his philosophy is exactly what, we've kind of been talking about. Many Habs fans have been kind of feeling of making space for the young players. And you have to feel like that's a great call, right? He's already done that this summer with Hoffman. I think Jonathan Drouin, the writing was obviously already on the wall, but still all the same, that's a roster spot for a younger player that really needs it. And I personally really like this strategy. While it doesn't look like, he doesn't say like, he does say like, oh, we're not keeping the treasure chest for next summer, but in a lot of ways, you know, the numbers say differently. You can tell that he's planning something. He's being very prudent. He wants to make sure that he's protecting that cap space for next summer when coincidentally there's so many free agents that are going to be available. That might be the time that we really make our move, because I feel like there's a lot of sense in maybe adding a player a year before you really want to compete, just to make sure that they have the time to really kind of coalesce, get to know their teammates, develop that chemistry. So once it's really your time. And of course, you know, we're still, some people could say that that's kind of rushing it, but you know, you could say like 2 years from now, we could be competing. So getting somebody kind of this summer coming up, that could kind of line up nice for when we want to make that move. So you got to feel like there's a lot of moves coming, and Kent Hughes is being very strategic in terms of how he's planning for that and being very responsible financially.
For sure, Jesse. Yeah, and like you said, I sort of didn't mention that. Maybe I'll go back and look at that. He says we're not specifically we're saving for a treasure chest to spend next summer. No, I think each year we're going to go and see where we are. Yeah, I forgot to read that part of the quote. But here's the thing: like next summer, there's so many great opportunities, right? We have Leon Draisaitl, who again, like he's going to be 28 by the time that contract will be signed this coming summer. You know, you sometimes need those guys who are on the, you know, just around that 30-year-old range, those veteran guys. We also have Elias Pettersson, who is kind of saying, like, I don't know what's going on in Vancouver, and he's only turning 25 in a month. He'll be 25 signing that contract, which fits perfectly with the Habs timeline. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, Jesse, because Kent Hughes said, he's like, look, we're gonna look every single year when we go into this market. And even Jeff Gorton in that draft video said, you know, it's really hard to get free agents. They're a little older. You have to overpay. But let's take a look at some of the contracts, right? Before we get into, you know, who the Habs could maybe try and sign next year. Maybe we'll do a whole video on that. But, you know, as you mentioned, the Dvorak and Armia contracts, I think the David Savard contract, if they can clear that before the end of it as well, that would be a big bonus. I know it's only 3.5, but that's 3.5 that's probably better spent elsewhere. But Jesse, the big ones that stand out here to me, and I'm sure to you too, Brendan Gallagher and Josh Anderson. If that, I mean, the Habs are already going to be one of those teams that is well set up to offer some big money to some free agents. But you got to think, if the opportunity comes, could Kent maybe look at trading Anderson, or even the former and maybe even current heart and soul of the Habs, Brendan Gallagher?
Well, the top six is starting to look pretty crowded in Montreal, even though we could still use a little bit more of that superstar talent. You know, we might have that from within, just need to develop that. So, I mean, for Josh Anderson, it's, you know, because you got to feel like he's a top six player in this league.
Yeah.
But you know, just as where we're at and kind of where our young guys are coming up, you could see that being taken pretty quickly, right? So I think it is a fair point to bring up. I still really like what he brings to this team in a lot of ways. He just has so many skills. You kind of wish he could get a couple more at the back of the net, but still had a great season last year, right? But I think, you know, Brendan Gallagher, as much as we love him, it's one of these situations. So like, you love the player, you love what he's brought to the organization, just pretty injured quite a bit, you know, of late, right? So it's hard to kind of live up to that deal when you are being injured. So it's one of those kind of love-hate sort of situations with him. You have to feel, though, at a certain point, if we do kind of want to make those further steps to be competitive, as management has stated that they would like to do, that, you know, some moves like that would be in order.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that that's even a possibility. But as Kent said, look, if this player is not part of the long-term plans, we're going to try and clear that money. And I think I don't think it's a shot at Gallagher at all. I don't think it's specifically mentioning him, but it definitely, you know, it's worth talking about with this statement from Kent Hughes and just the Gallagher situation. But not only that, Jesse, the other part of that I said we were going to talk about later, we'll talk about that now, CAREY Price. And like, I know he's on LTIR, but it's $10.5 million each year, and in the summer you have to count that towards your actual cap, right? And it really messes with the amount of available cap you have in the season. And like he did with Shea Weber's contract, he traded it for Evgeny Dadonov, and then Dadonov for Gurianov, and now Gurianov's gone, whatever, it ended up being fine. He said it's not an impossibility to trade CAREY Price's contract. Now, me personally, I don't know if the Habs are going to be competing within the next 3 years, because there's only 3 years left on this deal. I wouldn't mind just eating that contract until the day he retires, so he gets paid out fully as a Montreal Canadian. But I don't know, Jesse. It's kind of, I don't know if I want to say scary, but it's crazy to think that there is a world where both Brendan Gallagher and CAREY Price don't retire as Montreal Canadiens.
I know, and a lot of Habs fans really don't like that possibility, especially with Carey Price, is so beloved in so many ways, right? But you got to think that at the same time, Kent Hughes is definitely looking at all options, and if there is almost one GM that could kind of almost pull off this move right now, this masterclass of a deal that would certainly be, it would be Kent Hughes. So I think that, just the fact that he's stating that, might be hinting that, he's looking at all options, that this is something that he is working on. In no way is that a disrespect to Carey Price. I think Carey Price wants what's best for the Montreal Canadiens. Many of us want him to retire as well. But at the same time, I think, Kent Hughes, as his responsibility is to look at all options, is doing just that. So, I mean, that would definitely be interesting to see.
And the thing is, too, Jesse, look, I know we saw Shea Weber around at some points, like occasionally coming back and seeing the guys, but Price has been working in net with someone like Montembeault, and if he's traded to another team, I'm pretty sure he can't do that, right? Like, at least not as much. He might be able to say hi or something. I mean, I'm sure he can train in the off season, but during the season, I don't think you're allowed to do that. So it's a weird situation. But let us know what you guys think in the comments. Is it crazy that Kent Hughes might trade Carey Price's contract? What do you think about his sentiment and statement that, like, these guys are going to get all shipped out potentially within the next year or two? It's kind of a crazy situation, and yeah, we'll have to keep you updated. But that'll do it for this news edition of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 10,000 subs. We really appreciate all your support. I'm Josh Gosse for my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.